Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host Nathan P. Butler. This time we take a look at something that's somewhat tangential here. It does include Star Wars as one of its primary foci, however. This is actually something that was suggested by a viewer on YouTube who happened to comment on another video who goes by Golden Tin Type here on YouTube. And this is a video in a series by Popular Mechanics. The series is referred to as Technology of the Movies. And I thought, just looking at the title, that this must be talking about kind of like Star Wars tech. Like, let's look at something in the movies and see how it fits with modern technology and how close we are to that and how that might apply to something kind of like the real world. But instead, this is much more of a behind-the-scenes type thing, sort of a typical behind-the-scenes thing, focused on the special effects aspects of the movies. In this case, with A New Hope being one of them. So this is the item in question. It is Popular Mechanics video, Space, Hollywood's Ultimate Challenge. Has the Enterprise there. The Enterprise, I am assuming, I don't see the marking there, I'm assuming that is the 1701 refit, not the A, but it could be the A because it is Star Trek VI that they focus on the most. Action-packed scenes from Star Wars, Star Trek, and other classics. Fascinating interviews with special effects masters, or should I say, fascinating interviews and so on. Technology of the Movies, Volume 4. Again, that is a series. It's only about half an hour long. Popular Mechanics video. Has the Enterprise there from the cover again. Has a series in Volume 4 again. The name, VHS, and a product number. Effectively the same thing on the other side, the top. Before we look at the back, Popular Mechanics video, title, VHS, product number. The back, which we will read, has, again, Popular Mechanics video, Space, Hollywood's Ultimate Challenge, UPC, information about it, quite a bit of it, a list of the other stuff that's available, which I will mention, a couple of images there, and then you've got their copyright information, legalese, all that stuff. It is from Good Times Home Video, and this was from 1994, so all the stuff that they're talking about here, I would note, is pre-special edition stuff. So kind of cool to again see something that is looking at Star Wars and its impact on special effects from that era in which we aren't talking about CG and stuff and digital filmmaking and all that. That certainly became more of what was talked about once that became the norm for Star Wars, 97 onward here. If we look inside, here's our cassette, relatively short there. We have Popular Mechanics, Space, Hollywood's Ultimate Challenge. Notice no video there, just Popular Mechanics. And then approximately 30 minutes, color, VHS, product number, copyright, Good Times Home Video, and their address, and the typical copyright warning. So let's take a look at what this says about itself on the back, and then I'll talk a little bit about the program having watched it. I actually watched it by finally breaking out a converter that I've had for a while and never actually bothered to use. It just takes the composite video where you've got the the yellow video cable, the audio cables, just the left and right, the red, white stuff. But then you can use that to pump it into this little thing that's powered by USB and then goes straight to your HDMI port. A very common little converter item. I bought it years ago. It's been sitting in a drawer with my multi-region Blu-ray 3D player and such. But finally, I had a reason to break it out. Unfortunately, the reason does have to also do with why you don't see a lot of captured video here on the channel anymore, particularly from something like VHS. My current computer cannot apparently handle well the program that comes with the capture software that I had been using before, so regardless of the dongle still working, it's just choppy as hell when it tries to capture anything. So I've pretty much given up on the capturing and whatnot. I'm actually going to uninstall that program, and instead, anytime I need to view something, I'll be using my all-region VCR that is in our kitchen of all places, or do a hookup like I did for this. A little behind-the-scenes, not quite magic. It's kind of like magic, except it's like when you reach to pull the rabbit out of the hat and people see that you're pulling it from a bag underneath or something. Do you keep rabbits in a bag? Maybe a cage? Anyway, what it says about itself is, Hollywood filmmakers have long been fascinated by the idea of space travel, and for good reason. The concept of intergalactic explorers discovering alien worlds creates opportunities for gripping storylines and dazzling special effects. Now, in this extraordinary new program from Popular Mechanics, you'll learn exactly how your favorite scenes in Star Wars and Star Trek and other classic space movies were created. Among the highlights, it's a bullet point list, action-packed scenes from the Star Wars and Star Trek sagas, fascinating accounts of how George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic developed something called motion control, and why it remains the most revolutionary special effect of all time, how makeup artists painstakingly sculpt masks that give Klingons their distinctively frightening look, why robotics experts who created R2-D2 are still in awe of early science fiction films like Forbidden Planet, and much more. Hosted by Christopher Reeve, which is kind of a surprise to me. I had not read the back, and then I turned it on, I was like, whoa, it's freaking Superman. Also available from Popular Mechanics Video for those who are interested in this series. There's basically two different product lines, apparently. There's Technology of the Movies and Technology of War. The Technology of the Movies has 3 other volumes at least listed here. I would assume there's only 4 because Technology of War also only has 4. But for Technology of the Movies, we have War Movies and Weapons of Destruction, Special Effects, and Monster Movies as those. I may look and see if Special Effects perhaps also might include something for Star Wars here. But this is Volume 4, specifically related to space. So, what is in here that relates to Star Wars? First off, just from a structural standpoint, what you've got here, if you're going to try to look for this maybe, and they are found pretty cheap online at this point, it does first talk about Star Trek. And it focuses in on basically the ships, particularly the Klingon birds of prey and so forth. Then it moves into Star Wars and talks a bit about the rope swing and the matte paintings and everything that were used to try to make that all work. And then it talks a bit about motion control and how that is used to sort of layer things together. Then it does talk a little bit about droids, but it's not really talking about droids in Star Wars so much as it uses the mention of the droids as a way of jumping away to talk instead about Forbidden Planet. And then after that, they jump back to Trek, and that's when they talk about the distinctive makeup for the Klingons and how that kind of grew over time, particularly with Star Trek VI, having a lot of different Klingon means of doing that makeup to make them all distinct here. So kind of bookended by Trek, with Star Wars and a little bit of Forbidden Planet there in the middle. They also, at one point when talking about the robots, do show a Short Circuit, which, you know, brought back some nostalgia for me. You know, number 5 is alive and all that. So for Star Wars discussion, you have Ed Jones is interviewed. They talk a lot about how ILM is kind of its own worst enemy in that particular era because they tend to always want to do something new and never tend to want to say no, which means they put themselves in a position of having to do some pretty tough stuff. Harrison Ellenshaw is in it at this point, working for Disney. Kind of an interesting connection and bridge there. They talk about with the motion controls, I mentioned the layer-by-layer aspect of it, very much like what we think of as sort of digital photo editing and stuff now with Photoshop, which of course was one of the things going back to folks who had worked on Star Wars before. You know, the Knowles. Speaking of people who also worked on Star Wars, we see Dennis Muren for a little bit in here. And they talk a bit about the jump to hyperspace and how, to them, it felt like it was a very simple type of thing to do relative to many of the other shots that they did, but that was the one that always got audiences to cheer and so forth. And that's basically it. Not a whole lot to it. Little half-an-hour program. Again, kind of that middle chunk all about Star Wars here, but they do hit 2 separate Star Wars topics, the swing and what was going on with the motion control and kind of how that added to the industry and all. Pretty interesting, albeit short. Again, you can find it relatively cheap online, but that is Popular Mechanics Video from the Technology of the Movies series, Volume 4, Space, Hollywood's Ultimate Challenge. My thanks to Golden Tintype for pointing me to this. It is now part of my Star Wars home video library. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.